Hello, warriors. Welcome to the You Movement. We're a black sheep ministry where we save ourselves. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I am B. I'm giving you a real-time look of what a Kundalini awakening is like. And yesterday I filmed a video feeling quite high. I had a high. I've said in many videos this journey can feel insanely bipolar. Because when you reach new highs, like I jump timelines and am out of my monkdom and socializing with people for the first time in years. And then boom, back down we go. And it's been a wee challenging. As you can see, I'm filming this where I can tolerate at the present moment. I went from lying in my bed where I had a very sleepless night. The tinnitus is out of the world, off the charts, so loud, which creates anxiety and creates fear. So you're working against yourself in trying to regulate your nervous system when you're experiencing physical shit that is unexplainable. There's no like, oh, this is the break on the x-ray here and we're gonna put this in a cast and it's all gonna be great, you know? I've had all this dental stuff that you've been seeing if you've been following me for a period of time. Like I've lost 3 teeth. I'm in the process of getting three fake ones come into me, but I still have pain in the gum. And when the energy is really intense, I'm clenching it and which makes the pain worse, right? So it's like a loop. I'm in this like trauma loop right now that is very hard to get off, this fucking merry-go-round of experiencing physical sensations in the body that defy logic or defy reason or, you know, came out of nowhere. The tinnitus started 3 years ago, just after I had gone no contact and I was basically withdrawing and detoxing and spent a large majority of time lying in the garden, holding on to dear life. And something went pop and I've had tinnitus ever since. It doesn't go away. It does sometimes, it's not so bad. So here's the loop, right? So you are hearing tinnitus or you're feeling pain or you're experiencing weird fucking Kundalini syndrome symptoms that can be anything. Like over the years, I've had so many different unexplainable symptoms. As I said, I used to go into the doctor's office with a binder, you know, oh, I've got dizziness this week. Oh, I've got nausea this week. Oh, I've got irritable bowel syndrome this week. Oh, I've got this. Oh, I've got that. Like, it was like I would have like a chart with a body drawn with arrows, migraines, this, sinus, like, oh my God. And so the more I detoxified my body, the better the symptoms got. So they did. I've had a couple of clients ask me about this because they're still suffering with a lot of physical symptoms. And other than like what's been happening for me, from the neck down, I'm kind of good. Except for a little bit of low back in the SI joint, still some tension. But like considering I didn't used to be able to walk up a flight of stairs 6 years ago, and now I can walk and do yoga and do all kinds of things. If all I have left is a little bit of trauma still in the SI region, I'll take it. You know, I'll take that little bit of pain. It's like negligible compared to where I was in mobility. And so, you know, when I know all of this is happening, well, I'm going to say when I know, because that's funny, because when the Kundalini is in your head, clearing stuff. So obviously clearing some throat chakra stuff, hitting up against the nerve, you know, clearing head stuff. I get really confused. And it's like, I go into this regression, you know, trauma is like emotional flashbacks are different than like how flashbacks are depicted in like the movies, you know, like in the movies you'd have like a ceiling fan going off and then all of a sudden like a dude would be down on the floor and like thinking he's there in Vietnam and like, oh my God, they're coming, you know. An emotional flashback isn't like that to the same extent, because it's an emotional flashback. It's not like necessarily something that's like visually or auditorily like triggered, like a thinking that you're there, but emotionally something has triggered, and emotionally it's like you're there. Emotionally, you are a 4-year-old, a 10-year-old. You're back in the brain of maybe even an infant. Or past life. Oh, those are fun. When you're clearing past life or ancestral stuff, which, you know, this journey is like, defies belief. And so when you're in the throes of like an emotional flashback, your nervous system gets dysregulated, because you're experiencing the emotions that you couldn't experience then safely, which then creates more tension in the body, clenching of jaw, and, you know, my nice little row of wrinkles here all come together. And then you exacerbate your physical symptoms. So then my tinnitus gets worse. And then my pain gets worse, and I'm like, oh no, now I have to worry about these things. What's happening to me? The mind starts going ape, because the mind wants to figure out what exactly is happening, because you don't have a definitive answer. And like, you, in that child mind, you know, it's difficult to say, hey, you're having a Kundalini, because your child mind's like, what the fuck's a Kundalini? And like, when did this start? And what's going on? And I'm confused and I don't understand. So you're in a consciousness, you're flashing back to an earlier consciousness. At the same time that's like colliding with your present day consciousness, and it's like a loop of fear, which triggers tension in the body, which triggers more fear, which triggers more tension in the body, which triggers more pain, which like, so you're like looping through stuff, and your mind is not, or my mind is not functioning at its full capacity. And the last couple of days, I've gone from being like basically having a brain injury. Like, I went into my osteopath, who's been on my healing team helping me heal. And, you know, she had to orient me in the office. We were like sitting down on the floor and like doing orientation exercises to bring me back into like calm, because my nervous system was firing and the emotions were just pouring out, which is a good thing that they're coming out. But at the same time, like, it's messed. It's just messed. And everybody wants, you know, to know what's happening to them. And you can go to all these different places, and more than one thing can be true at the same time. Okay, so, you know, one person's spiritual awakening is another person's twin flame journey, which is another person's Kundalini, which are kind of like one of the same, but that's my point. Which is another person's trauma release, which is another person recovery from addictions, which is another person's like escaping from narcissistic abuse and trying to regulate after. Or it's all of the above, you know, all of the above. So my body and my mind and my emotions is coping the best that I possibly can. Like, if I could cope better, I would cope better. But I'm coping as well as I possibly can, considering, I went through a dramatic healing crisis and lost a substantial amount of weight and cured a lot of illnesses, which changed my entire, basically, physiology. I released every single addiction that I had, which also changed my tox load in my body and my physiology. I escaped from one of the most cruel humans that I've ever come across, and that changed my physiology. Like, narcissistic abuse is measurable on brain scans because of the size of your amygdala. Now, granted, I haven't had a brain scan because I've had every other freaking test out there. When I was trying to go through the medical world of misdiagnoses and had MRIs, CAT scans, I even went and got like thermal body imaging done to see, and all that told me was I had a shit ton of inflammation in the body at the time. I would love to probably go and do it again, except it's crazy expensive. Just to compare where I was 3 years ago. Maybe it's something I'll do when I feel like, oh my God, I feel great. I want to go and compare the results to that. That might be interesting. But that would just be kind of like a treat. It's not necessary right now. And so my body is coping as best as it possibly can after years of trauma. Even the awakening journey itself is traumatizing. Like, what I've been through in the last 6 years is insane. And listen, I know I'm not the only one, because I've talked about all the initiations that we seem to many people share, in the last, like, it's insane. It's just insane what I've, had to go through. So, it's no wonder my nervous system is, completely kaput. So here I am. God has brought me to this lovely slice of heaven. And as much as I would like to be out and fishing and hiking and paddleboarding and living my best life, my nervous system is like, whoa, your mind is trying to circumvent this phase of the healing process, this recovery phase. Because first I had to survive. Right? I survived for years. I became a master at surviving. That's why I consider myself a spiritual warrior. And that's why I call people spiritual warriors, because surviving is warrior work. Recovery is not warrior work, or at least it's not the same type. It's not pushing through, it's not endurance, it's not masculine energy, it's not being hyper vigilant and observing everything to make sure that you're catching any signs, because your gullibility has landed you in too many predicaments. I talked about my gullibility the other day. And even in the video that I talked about the other day, I was like, oh my God, oops, I did it again. In a state of dysregulation, I went seeking guidance, and somebody was trying to sell me this whole, you need this, testing for all your meridian lines, and we're going to come up with some herbal concoctions for you. And it's just going to cost about $550. And I was like, yeah, I need that. And then luckily when I got home, I'm like, oh my God, hello. So I canceled that appointment. I ordered some passion flower herbal tincture instead off Amazon for $23, $23, or, some ridiculous. And that's my point though, is when we are going through this, how we relate to others in this world can present a lot of problems. not only from like all the fuckers that are trying to screw you and get money out of you because you're vulnerable, you're easily impressionable, and you're can be sold snake oil so fast, like so fast. Like buyer beware. I can't remember if I told the story of Master Chrism. If you're seeking help from him, run for your life. Run for your life. Go and do some research on cult warning sites, because there's a guy who presents himself as this really awakened master of Kundalini. And so people who are new to Kundalini and don't know anything about Kundalini might seek him out. I did before I came across Craig Holliday, which go to him. Do not go to Master Prism. And I trigger people. It's one of the things I've learned that I do. And I either trigger people's goodness or I trigger people's shadow. And I attended one of his Zoom meetings and I used the word channel. I said, I don't know what's happening to me. I think I'm channeling. This is when like my channel started to open. And he went ballistic. It was like insane. He like smoke almost was coming out of his ears. He went like demonic and lost his shit and started screaming at me. I'm crying. This is on a Zoom call in front of like 25, 50 people. I can't even remember how many people were on the call. And for 20 minutes went on a tirade about how channeling is like evil and demonic and you shouldn't do it, which is like, oh, like I was like scared because I'm going through Kundalini. The last thing I want to be told is like what's happening to me is in some form demonic. But what I've learned is when people project, right? When people say you are this, that's always a confession. So he uploads these Zoom calls on Spotify and on YouTube, as far as I know. And so I went and listened to the call that I was just on, and he edited out the 20-minute tirade. But I figure like somebody in that group needed to see him go ballistic, because that was not the like I am a guru kind of vibe. You know, I'm going to take good care of people. And so I did some research and discovered that he was on these cult warning sites, because what would happen is people who are very vulnerable in their Kundalini awakenings would seek him out, and he's like, well, I can private coach you and you can come and spend time with me and I'll take care of you. And so people would show up to where he lived, and then he'd be like, now buy me this, now buy me that. Like they basically became his financial slaves. And that wasn't even the worst of it, because the worst of it was he kept telling people that they had to surrender completely and utterly to Kundalini, and to him, not just to Kundalini, but to him. So please get naked on camera for me to prove that you're going to surrender to me. You need to show that you are willing to strip yourself of all. Now, that's a serious abuse of power. Like, so his name came up in a post recently that I saw somebody else warning people, you know, so don't go to him. And there's a bunch of other people that along my awakening path, I can say, don't go to them, because you know, we're so overwrought, desperate for help, desperate for healing. And that makes us super vulnerable. And I suppose in reality, if you take a step back and you look at it through the soul's point of view, it's lessons. It's lessons to be more shrewd. It's lessons to don't make impulsive decisions. It's lessons in not responding from fear. And so, and being in your observer. So I was in the middle of an emotional flashback when I'm running to this herbal store and convinced that, yes, I need all this ridiculous vitality testing. That's the last thing I need, because I can guarantee after their vitality testing, it would be very similar to the other shyster that I went to, who scammed $2,000 out of me, who did this report on me, telling me all the things that's wrong with me, right? So I'd already spent like many years healing, and then she gives me this long list. So then you're even more afraid, like, oh my God, I've got toxins, I've got parasites, I've got heavy metals, I've got a decreased immune system, I've got this. So be very careful of people that want to give you a very lengthy report of everything that's wrong with you when you have Kundalini and your mind is mushy, because they just want your money. They just want to scare the shit out of you, and so that you buy their protocols, right? Everybody's got something to sell, and you got to be very, 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 very cautious on this Kundalini journey. But it's not just practitioners that you need to be cautious of, because most of us find ourselves on this path and become very isolated and alone because our own family isn't a safe place. Like, I look back and I'm like, I don't even know how I called those people family. Like, what? But I was like in La La Land, I was in such denial because I would never call things out because I didn't want people to not like me or abandon me. But they weren't even there. They already didn't like me. I already had abandoned me. Like, they had never actually even been there. Like, my entire extended family lived like a 4-hour flight away, and like, it's not like we ever went to the movies or something, or even talked on the phone or exchanged, a text message in all of my life, which is crazy. But, our minds, as it's turning to mush, and we're having these highs and lows, and we're going through dark night of the soul, we're going through ego death, we're going through like spiritual happenstance that is so easily misdiagnosed or misperceived that you may be inspired to reach out. I did. I got in touch with everyone through my awakening at some stage, writing letters. My birth parents, my cousins, I reached out. I needed help. And I got a lot of crickets back. A lot of silence. Cricket. And so that in itself also was a lesson. Everything's a lesson. Not being responded to is exceptionally triggering for me. Like insanely triggering. So the fact that my twin did that as well, as oh my God, trigger. But, triggers he did his job perfectly. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. He was supposed to trigger the shit out of me. He did it. He triggered all of my wounds to surface. And so then I would sit in each and every one of those wounds and sit in the emotional flashbacks and then express myself, say my truth. And I guess it landed like a lead balloon for a lot of people when I started speaking my truth, because my truth and the truth that we step into in this awakening path is so far from the reality that we once lived. So far from it. And it's hard enough for us who are living it to reconcile the shift in consciousness, your DNA actually moving around and doing different ass shit. I don't look the same, I don't talk the same, I am not the same. There were times on my awakening I was so confused, and I'm like who even am I? Am I a walk-in? Did the soul that I once was leave the building, and am I somebody else now? Did a new soul, did we trade off? I thought that because there's an Indigo Girls song called Closer to Fine. And it's like, I went to the doctor, I went to the philosopher, I went to the mountain. Like, she just goes everywhere seeking and searching to get her closer to fine. And man, that was me. I was going anywhere and everywhere to find myself closer to fine. I was going to the doctors. I was going to the shysters and the false gurus. I was going to the, self-proclaimed shamans offering me sacred medicines that were going to cure me of my PTSD, which only tore me open. And so the first time I went and did Bufo and Cambo, well, that was fucked up. I don't recommend doing any form of sacred medicines on a Kundalini. Listen, if you're not having a Kundalini, just go do whatever you want. Well, really, you can do whatever you want anyways, because I'm not your guru. You're your own guru, so you can decide what's right for you. But from my personal experience, hell's to the no with sacred medicines. So I didn't know what happened to me. I was at that retreat. So we were doing both frog medicine and toad medicine. And I can actually sit myself up. I've been lying now for a couple of hours. Let's see if I can get this sorted. Let's pop. Yeah, so I was desperately seeking out my way out of suffering. And we did Cambo and Bufo. So Cambo is frog medicine and Bufo is toad medicine. And when I did the frog medicine, Cambo, okay, so Cambo is like these little peptides that they scrape off a frog. Don't worry, no frogs were hurt in the making of Cambo, apparently. So these little frogs are jumping around the Amazonian forest without any predator that would kill them. So apparently, like, they don't have an adrenal system or no fight or flight. They're really chill. And that's why it's supposed to be good for, like, PTSD. And what they do is they burn you. Okay, so they burn your skin. They pick points. You go and you talk about what it is that you're trying to clear and what you're trying to shift. And they pick points on your body. And I think it was my low back that they did the first time round, or maybe it was my chest. I'm not sure. And they burn you. So it's just a superficial burn, like they're long healed. Like they burn you, and then they paste the little peptide compound on top of the burn. And then within about like 5 minutes, not even, you start to burn. Like I felt like I was burning, and we were outside, and I was like smacking the ground with my hands because my hands felt like they were fire, and I was like covered with fire ants. And then all of a sudden, my channel, don't tell Christian, my channel opened and I started spewing light language. Like, I mean, I was full in, this is the first time that I ever really started speaking light language. I had known of light language before. I have known many healers because I've been on the healing path for 30 years, but I've known other people that have done it. And I was in a trance, and this is not a normal Cambo reaction. So it opened something in me, and I was like channeling the woman of, I can only assume, was ancestral energies. It was a French woman, and she had, if this is an ancestor of mine, she had lost her baby, and like I was wailing, crying. Like I was purging this energy and speaking in tongues, light language, and just doing a spontaneous healing. So that's one of the things that I do. I do weird spontaneous healings. I've been doing them now for 4-something years. And it's taken me a little bit of a time to integrate the reality that I do this, because it felt very wackadoodles to me, and I was quite judgmental, and I'm just recently, in the last week, clearing a lot of my witch wounds. Yay! Clear the witch wounds. and clearing the ancestral religious Christian doctrine wounds along with that, which is why maybe I'm comfortable talking about this now. Because I haven't really talked in huge depth, and I have one spiritual warrior that's always like, when are you going to talk about light language? When are you going to talk about Kundalini more and your experiences? And I'm like, oh, I will when I do videos, I don't plan them. I don't script anything. I just let flow what flow needs to be said. I just channel. And so I first do that, and then I do Bufo, and I died. Like, I died. I died. Like, I did the Bufo, which is toad medicine, and it's very high in DMT. And I can remember saying to the shaman lady, I'm like, oh, good, I can leave now. I can go. I can finally die. And then I'm back. She even said, you were gone, and then you came back. So I was like, for a long time, like, wondering, like, what the hell is happening to me? Like, is this Kundalini? Am I a walk-in? Is my, what am I? Am I a soul? What is a soul? Am I from the angelic realm? Why are the angels actually talking to me? Why am I channeling Archangel Michael? When did these skills develop? You know, like, I didn't get invitation from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. It would have been really useful. Instead, I had come to this planet, and with my weirdnesses, my freak, my gifts, my autism, you see how everything can be the same. It's just different lens looking at the exact same thing. So from one camp, autism is like this disorder, but from the spiritual camp, it's your gifts, you know, like, and from one camp, they can say, oh, you're having mental health problems. And then the other camp is like, no, you're having Kundalini. And then one camp is saying, you know, oh my God, you're having, limerence. That's a bad thing. And then the other camp is like, no, you're not. You're on a twin flame journey, and you're experiencing divine love that's meant to break you open. So there's all these different perspectives, and everybody has opinion about something, and everybody's trying to sell you something, and you're just like going around as you're going through this melting process. You know, one of my spiritual warriors has often referred to it as like the movie The Fly, where it feels like you go into a machine and like you're being morphed into something else, and you are. You know, a spiritual awakening is the path of the caterpillar, where the caterpillar crawls into its little cocoon, and it's in its isolation, it's in its hermit mode, and then it turns to goo. Okay, all of its DNA melts and it turns to goo before it reforms, and then it reforms, and all of a sudden it's completely different. It's like, yay, I can fly, I'm out of here, you know. And our metamorphosis takes a lot longer. It takes a lot longer, but that's exactly what's happening to us. Our cocoon may not be visible to others, and it may not be understood by others, by family, by practitioners, by well-intentioned healers, by not well-intentioned gurus. And when we are in this goo phase, we have to learn to become our own gurus, our own saviors. You know, I recently changed, I've said from the get-go, you know, mission one is save yourself, but I've recently changed the tagline to be a black sheep ministry where we save ourselves, because that's what we are doing. We are, in a sense, saving ourselves from the construct of our old reality, the caterpillar consciousness, and morphing and melting and going through the hells of fire realms to burn us, disintegrate our old egoic concepts and realities, and then form us again as the person we were, you know, always meant to be. And that person can be the polar opposite of everything your ego has been trying to do for the last 50 odd years, right? I wanted to like just be a housewife and just have a peaceful life and don't bother anybody because I'm afraid of people, and if I have this drink I feel good, and so everything that my ego was doing was opposite of my soul, of sitting in front of a camera and being vulnerable and having messy hair and crying and snot flying and lying down on the ground. But listen, that's what a fucking awakening is. Like, it's gooey. It's gooey, it's difficult, it's time consuming. It's up, it's down, it's fears, it's challenges, it's lessons, it's fuckeries, it's absolute insanity. Like, I feel like in 2019, my life was hijacked, and in a way it was hijacked by soul, and everything that I was scared to do, I was forced to start doing. I was scared to like show myself for who I was as a woman of a certain age, with my little God highlights here and my little wrinkles and my armpit hair now. I was scared to read Oracle for, before and during for a period of time. That's, thank God, is gone. I'm just going to stick to what God has given me instructions to, not what other people, because that's just it. Other people, as good intentioned as they may or may not be, right, may misdirect you over and over and over again. And so we have to spend time, an extended period of time on our own to figure out what we like, what we don't like, what our body resonates with as truth and not truth, what our nervous system feels safe in and doesn't feel safe in. To me, friendships now are not about who the popular chick is, because I always wanted to be with the popular girl, if she don't make me feel safe, I don't care how popular you are. I'm going to choose the person that makes my nervous system feel safe, feel heard, feel seen, feel understood. So I don't care if somebody is popular, if they're wealthy, if they're, got all their shit together and look a certain way, if they're beautiful, if they're not, I just don't care about any of those things. I register all people now through the lens of does my nervous system feel safe with you? And if you're coming in and you're gaslighting me, or you're manipulating me, or you're using my house as a crash pad to meet men, or you're non-reciprocal, there's not the same kind of energetic vibe, you don't check in on me, you don't respond to my texts, you manipulate situations so that you can look less like you did something wrong, you can't repair, you can't account. All of those things say to my nervous system, no. And my nervous system has endured enough. Like, it really has endured enough. And through all of this, it's just too much. It's just too much. So I don't even know what day, within the top 10 days of my 100 days, it's up to August the 28th, brings me to 100 days of chill the fuck out so that I can put the health of my nervous system above all else. Above my business, above my friends, above everything. Because I love myself so fucking much after what I've been through, which is the point of the journey, People talk about union on the twin flame journey, and there's multiple levels of union. First, there is union with self. Then there is union with soul tribe, being seen and understood, soul family. Like, the family we were born into is not our family. Many of us find that, and there's a lot of grief that needs to be processed through releasing that. They aren't our safe people. They aren't our safe place. There's union with God, which really actually should be first and foremost, but that one's up there for me. There's union with mission, which means showing up and doing what you're most scared to do. Doing this YouTube, even though I've been doing it 4 years now, was terrifying, this process for me. But like, I would sit down and do a video regardless. I'm like, I am feeling the fear and I am doing it anyways. I am going, and, nervous ums and tics and everything else, and looking ridiculous. And I'm like, I don't care. There's a point to the mission. The fact that my family doesn't understand that point and understand that I'm trying to prevent people from, I'm trying to help people through their awakenings and prevent people from making permanent decisions for temporary problems. And they don't value me for that. It hurts to not be seen. It hurts to not be understood, but I will grieve and I will move on, because being in alignment with mission means letting go of anything that's preventing that, which might be moving houses multiple times, losing jobs multiple times, losing all your money, surviving as best you can, losing friends, losing your health. If it's going to require you getting sick before you make a change in how you eat, for example, right? Like, I didn't want to give up donuts. Who the fuck wants to give up donuts? Donuts rock. Oh, I love donuts. But eating donuts got me very sick and diabetic, and I was having neuropathy, and urinating myself. So what's your rock bottom? Soul is going to give you your scenarios that are rock bottom so that you get back into mission. It's like a pinball game where you're the ball and then you're getting smacked to stay on the board. You're like, you're not supposed to be over here. I'm going to move you over here. You're not supposed to live in Twin Springs. I'm going to move you over here. You're not supposed to be in this marriage. I'm going to destroy that. You're not supposed to be here. And then a little bit, sometimes you'll have some bliss moments where you're up at the top of the board and you're like, bing, 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 bing. Oh my God, yeah, I'm getting downloads. I'm in a new timeline. I'm meeting soul family. I'm in mission. I'm going to do some light language. And then you're way down again and you're getting smacked around again. Okay. This is the game of life. And sometimes you're going to be down and out. And that may be, lying on the floor in recovery position with your knees up, or lying with your legs up against the wall. I was also doing that this morning. Or lying in a hammock. I would be outside, except it's too windy. Lying on the ground. There's a lot of lying around in the recovery phase of this awakening process. A lot of lying around. And I used to beat the crap out of myself for that, because I was of the indoctrination that you need to always be busy and accomplishing and doing and this and that. And so some days I am doing things. I have my groups, I have my clients, I'll get an inspiration to do some writing, and then there's other days where I'm like, no, like today. I don't work on the Sabbath. On Saturdays, although I suppose this is technically kind of working, but it's more like healing for me anyways. I don't work on the Sabbath. I'm going to lie here, I'm going to get a massage this afternoon, and I'm going to chill the fuck out. That's my mission today, and it's going to be my mission for tomorrow as well. And if you need the permission, if you need somebody to say to you, what you're going through is crazy, and trust yourself above all else. Trust yourself. Listen to your own nervous system, and trust that when you're not meant to be somewhere, it's for your highest and greatest good. You're being redirected, for your highest and greatest good. Isolation sometimes is protection, Thank God. Thank God. May no weapon that has been used against me shall prosper. A lot of prayer. And that's good because, you know, connecting to God ultimately is the highest of missions, the highest of unions. And for that, that's where I'm at now on my own journey, is connecting to God, is sinking in to greater amount of faith that whatever is happening, whatever feels like chaos around me or confusion around me or traumas coming up or lessons coming in, or I may not understand it all, and that's okay. Because God does. I may not know what the future holds for me. I'm hoping it's going to show community is coming in. I'm very excited about that. But God knows if that's going to stick or not, right? We've got a beautiful raven going over now. The birds are always talking to me. Am I going to get divine partnership? That'd be lovely. You know, I've been alone for a long time. I would really love to do this work with someone. Who that person is, I don't know. It's above my pay grade. But when I'm ready, when God says, okay, you're ready, then that will show up for me. And even having that hope that that's on the cards, that that's something that is meant for me. And one of the things that God shows me routinely, it's really kind of funny, is it's spring here and I do a lot of bird watching. And everyone's always in twos. And I'm like, oh, look, 2 geese. Oh, 2 ducks. Oh, 2 this, 2 that. And I'm like, yeah, I get the message. Everything is divinely, God creates in twos. And so for a very long time, I carried the programming that I would be alone forever. I don't really carry that anymore. I've let go of that because I know there's nothing fundamentally wrong with me despite my programming. I'm learning to love myself so much that, like, I know what I deserve. And God keeps, like, doing, like, mini miracles. So I'm going to stay focused on the miracles, and I'm going to stay focused on God. And when I'm in pain and when I'm in confusion and when I'm hearing, I'm going to just keep breathing and using the mantra, I choose God. I choose God. Because if I'm choosing God, I'm not choosing fear. I choose God. So that is today's video, and I'm sending everybody all kinds of love out there. Peace in.